Ashley, Keri, thank you so much for joining me on the Salon Owners Collective podcast. I'm very pleased to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, look, let's start with who are you guys? Where do you live? How did you get to be doing what you're doing? Give us a bit of a bird's eye view into life with Ashley and Keri.
I'll take the first part. You take the second part, Keri.
Okay.
So my name is Ashley Heron-Smith. Her name is Keri Sotero. We are the hosts and business owners of Momtourage Podcast. We're, like everyone else, trying to grow this endeavor into others. And we are just two moms that live in New Jersey in the United States. And, we have collective backgrounds. We're actors. We've worked in production. We've done so many things. Hosts,
writers, comedy, hosts. Like we've done a bunch of obviously
basically everything in
separately means.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we came together for Momtourage. You want to tell that story?
Sure. Let's go right into it. So, Ashley and I first met doing another podcast called Scary Mommy Speaks. And the pitch of the show was two real life best friend moms who, dish and talk about stuff. Newsflash, we didn't know each other. We were cast as real life best friends. Long story short, they really did want real life best friends. They didn't like who Ashley brought. They didn't like who I brought.
They didn't like our real life
friends. They didn't like our real life friends.
Yeah.
And so they flip-flopped. And it was sort of like, they didn't say we could never say, but they strongly urged us to keep up the best friend thing. But we didn't have to do that for long because on the photo shoot ahead of recording, we hadn't even recorded anything yet, but like the promo photo shoot, I won Ashley over. She's kind of a no new friends kind of person. And I'm let me spill everything about myself. And so after talking some real foul stuff to her on the photo shoot, I won her over and she decided that, she could let in one real friend, one new friend. And that's it. So we did that podcast for a little under a year. The company stopped doing podcasts altogether. We were like, what? This is so much fun.
And we were really enjoying this and living
we're now real friends. Right. And so after
we cried for a day.
We cried for a day, went to Outback Steakhouse, which is ironic if you're in New Zealand, because nothing about this steakhouse is Outback. But we
Outback's Australian.
I know, New Zealand, Australia, but I'm just saying. Anyway, never mind, guys.
We went in the same, apparently.
We went to Outback Steakhouse, which in New York is rare. There are hardly any of them.
Yes.
And we decided we would just pick up our big girl pants and
start a new thing ourselves.
Yeah. After crying in our Chardonnays, we were like, nope, we can do this. And so now we have Momtourage Podcast and Most Talkative, which is a consulting company.
I love it. All right. Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to have you here on the show today is this kind of being in business and being a parent and a mother and trying to do all of the things. And so I really want to talk about that. How do we juggle that? And how do we make the best of the situation that we find ourselves in? And I think as business owners, we're constantly outputting, we're putting out to others, we're putting out to our customers, we're putting out to our team, to each other, and we have to come home and we have to put out to I shouldn't use put out, should I?
I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying. What I'm saying. Yes. Because when I got to the husband, I thought,
I was like, I'm definitely not putting out every day. That is
no
for sure.
Nope.
Tell you that much.
You know what I mean. We're giving. Yes. We're giving to all the people. And so how do we keep focused on ourselves? I know for me, after my kids got a little bit bigger and I launched my business, and then there's a little bit of space left for me, and I thought, I don't even know what I would do with it now. Like, what do I do with my, who am I? Like, am I a gym person? I know how to be a business person. And I know how to be a mother. What else? What's your take on this?
Well, first of all, I like that you said there was some space in between, because good for you, because lots of times there's no space in between. You're just this one person, you're the other person. There's no contemplating when is there time for me. You're just catching up to all the time you didn't have for you. But I don't think that's my kid. So you can't really have it all, guys. My kid is here on the recording. I think that one thing that Ashley and I talk about all the time, Luna, is that you have to remember the human you were before you were a mom, and not just think that now you're in one lane and now that lane's over and you're in a different one.
Yeah.
Ash?
I mean, I think speaking for myself, but I also think it kind of speaks for Keri, is I kind of, Keri had a very successful acting career, and still does. She's gets a lot of work, and I worked towards that for so long and never really got it. So for me, my life was very much about, okay, this isn't working. Let me figure out another way to try and make this work out. And, when I had my son, while I was pregnant, I was still auditioning. I was working a temp job, and just trying to figure out how to keep this dream, this goal alive, while also pivoting into this next step of my life, which was motherhood. And, after about 4 months of being at home with my son and getting used to this new role in my life, for me, it was very much like, whoa, who am I? Like, who is this person? I don't know who this person is.
Also, you look in the mirror and you don't look like the same person. So then you're like, wait a second. In my mind, I'm this 20-year-old woman who looks this way and feels this way. And now when I look and see, I'm like, no, I'm a very different person. So kind of sort of reconciling how you feel inside, the way you look on the outside, how you feel how you think you should feel. It's just, you lose yourself. And for me, I looked in the mirror and I was like, this does not look like, what is that quote? This is not my beautiful wife. This is not my beautiful house. This is not, everything looked different.
Yeah.
And so it was a journey to find the old me, or else I was going to be very depressed.
Yeah, for me, it was very much like, okay, this thing that I was pursuing, I'm not willing to give that up, but I am willing to find a new way to make this work for me. And that's what I did. That's really what really started this path, which ended up with the other podcast, and then Momtourage and Most Talkative. And it's all these things coming together that, really goes back to what we were saying is a key Momtourage pillar, which is you are a person
still
with
you.
Your own goals and your own aspirations. And at some point, no matter how many kids you have, I have a sister-in-law who's about to have her 5th child. At some point, you're not going to keep having kids, and you're going to have to face who that person is,
or like what happens
person wants,
and when your kid goes to college.
Exactly. And that child is at some point you will be home alone, and those kids will not be there. Who are you? And if you want to wait until that point, that's fine. Like, no judgment. You do you. That just wasn't the choice I made for my life. And Keri and I really hope that Momtourage encourages women to nurture that person inside of them, as opposed to just nurturing everybody else.
And we do it in a serious way, and we do it also in a very frivolous, not so serious way, because we're complex people.
That's
sometimes.
who we are.
Yeah, that's who we are.
Yeah,
for sure. I remember having this distinct thought that if my entire life was dedicated to the success or the outcome of my children, and then their lives were dedicated to completely to, the growth and the development and the success of their children, and that went on for generation after generation. And I thought, which generation is going to live a life for themselves? Like, what's the purpose? We have to fight for something that's ours, while we also give to the next generation. And I think it was
kids do just what the parents do. And so it has to start with you.
Yep.
That's right. And when I said before, it's interesting you picked up on that. When I found a little bit of space, I feel like I fought for that space. Like, I fought tooth and nail to get that space.
Yep.
So I feel like you've got to create it. You've got to find it. And it's in that empty space maybe that's what we're afraid of, the empty space, because it's so busy. Finding space when you don't know what to fill it with is super hard.
Or that you have to look at your own emptiness. Ooh, sorry to go so deep there.
Yeah.
it's scary to do something for yourself. It's scary to pursue something that in your own head, or maybe you've grown up hearing you can't do that. You know, whatever that hurdle is for you. For example, for me, I had very encouraging parents who were always like, you can do this, you can do anything. Like, don't stop, don't give up. I know Keri was the same with her mom. But it's still a challenge to then say, like, well, I have this other thing going on in life, and now I need to find a way to make that time for myself. But you do it. If it is important to you, you will find a way.
Yeah. And also women are hard on each other, sadly. And so sometimes there's been so much ingrained that if you don't make your child the center of your universe, then you're not a good parent. I think that narrative is changing, but there's still that kind of feeling of like, what are they going to say if I just decide I don't want to breastfeed at all? Or what if, like, all these, you know, judgments, or what if I choose sleep or get or a nanny, a night nurse, or whatever it is? Like,
what if I choose to only have one kid, which is something you and I have both chosen, and people have a lot of comments about. But listen, I also talk a lot of shit on parents who have a zillion kids, because I'm like, at what point do you stop? You know, we all have our preconceived judgments and things, and it's just inescapable. But women are very, very, listen, everyone's hard on women. Women are hard on women. Men are hard on women. Everyone is hard on women.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about trying to do all of the things. Have the business, have the perfect children, take them to 5 ballet lessons a day, and, you know, all of the things. I wonder whether sometimes we can get in a bit of a cycle of, I want to do it all, I have to do it all, or I feel the pressure to do it all. Does it actually bring us more happiness?
Ashley, what's the quote you say?
I said that you can have it all, but it's not going to all be great. You know, like I feel like I do have it all to some extent, right? Like, I have the child that I love tremendously. I have a career that is doing really well. I have a business partner that I actually really, really like, and we actually work really well together, which, let me tell you, that's the hardest hurdle, I think. I have a loving, supporting, good-looking husband that I really
Stop bragging.
like.
Just kidding.
No, but I just,
I know.
in this sense, I have parents who love me. I have a house over my head. I can afford to eat. But is my kid sometimes a shithead? 100%. Is my husband sometimes a dick? And sometimes we don't have time to, like, invest in our relationship because we're both busy with work or our kid or whatever? Yes. Am I sometimes awful? Totally. Do Keri and I sometimes argue? Yes. Does our business continue to go in an upward trajectory with no hiccups? Absolutely not. So that's the point. You can have it all. I'm not saying everyone does, but I'm saying it is possible. But it still isn't going to be rainbows. It still isn't going to be rainbows and puppy smiles. And that's the truth. Not everything is always going to, and you know what? Sometimes there's going to be move, or sometimes there's going to be divorce, or sometimes there's going to be a death, or sometimes, I don't know how taxes work in New Zealand. Sometimes the IRS is going to tell you you owe them $10,000 that you just can't pay. These things are going to happen.
My main thing is I only have so many, coins was the only word I could think of, but I only have so many coins, right? It's like a video game. And there's 5 or 6 different buckets that you could put the coins in. The coins stay the same. Sometimes the number of them, sometimes one bucket will be very full. Sometimes it'll be split evenly, but not to the fullest capacity. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, the weeks that I really feel like I'm killing it with our business, which has been at this week, frankly, then everything else is terrible. Like me completely ignoring my child and letting her wipe her boogers on the back of my sweatshirt as I try to record. So her bucket is a little empty, unfortunately. Now I try not to let any one bucket be too empty for too long. That's the thing, because the self-care bucket, the doing something for me, the doing something for my passion, the getting to that, losing that 20 pounds or that hobby that you always wanted, that bucket is always the one that is the least to get filled. So the key is to have like a little reminder that's like, the buckets can't be completely empty for too long.
Yeah.
Go, and then
it's
you got to
like
see where it is.
It's that game you see on Instagram or TikTok with targeted ads where it's like the different color sand and you have to get them all into the same bottle.
Oh yeah, or make the guy. Yeah,
right. It's juggling. It's juggling, and I don't like telling people that it's not possible because it is possible. It's just it's not going to be perfect. Nothing is.
And it won't stay the same because I feel like sometimes you've got 5 buckets and sometimes you've got 7.
Right.
Sometimes you've got 9 and then you go back to 3.
Right.
So, but you've got the same amount of coins. I
same
really
amount of
like
coins.
that. Yeah.
Same amount of coins.
It is juggling the sand and the coins for sure. Yeah. I love that analogy. Sometimes things don't go to plan and we have to change our plans. I want to talk a little bit about giving ourselves permission or knowing, what's that song? Knowing when to hold them and knowing when to let them go. Because sometimes you've worked so hard for something and then to let it go and realize that that's not the path or that's not actually how it's going to be and it's going to be something else. I think you guys have some experience in this.
Well, the first thing I want to say, sorry, I got really serious for a second, is that mental health is really important to me and very important to Ashley. It's something we talk about on our show a lot. And so I went wholehearted, full in one direction, which was to be a professional actor. And I had these like goals hold on for a second. Luna, please go watch your show. Okay. Just like a kid screaming.
My dog's barking now.
Just my kids singing the word tie-dye over and over for you guys. Okay. So I went wholeheartedly, just like straightforward to acting. And I had all of these goals that I wanted to reach for myself. One day I looked and I had reached every single goal in an extremely short period of time. And I looked in the mirror and I was depressed and upset, and nothing that I was doing, which was all the things I had wanted and thought would be amazing, were making me happy. And so after a nice long 10-year run, I left at the peak of my career just because it wasn't making me happy. I'm going to walk away and put my child downstairs and Ashley can finish. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, and another example of that is, like I said earlier, I had been working towards acting for so long. And in my mind, it was this glorified dream of what my life could be like. And I started to get acting roles. And I remember one role was I played in a feature, an indie feature. I played like a bikini chick. And I was like, this is what I went to acting school for. This is what I've paid so much money in headshots and haircuts and this and that and the other, is to be some bikini chick in a bathtub with some guy. This isn't what I want to do with this is not what I romanticized as a child, and it came to a point where I really had to reevaluate what I wanted to do. And that's where I pivoted. I realized that the thing that I really loved was being in that world, but it wasn't necessarily in that way. I love hosting. I love being myself and being able to talk and have a normal conversation as myself. And I think I offer good insight. So that's where, having my son really triggered pivoting into pursuing a hosting career. And honestly, that's where things have done the best.
Yeah, I think this for salon owners in particular, this happens often when we start a family and we have this other family, our salon and our team, and it kind of starts to not work together, or it gets harder beyond that moment of like, oh no, this is, and it's not that I don't love the two things, but it's not working. I'm the one that's not happy. And there's this real guilt around stepping away or changing, or all of, like you said, all of this time you've invested to become this person. And
money.
Yeah. And it also becomes a bit of your identity, right? And how do you suddenly go, oh no, that doesn't make me happy anymore, or it's not what I thought it was going to be, and be brave enough to switch and pivot. Any thoughts on kind of making that decision?
I mean, for me, no, because here's the honest truth. getting myself out of uncomfortable, realizing I no longer want to be in a situation and exiting is not that difficult for me personally. And I that sounds easy. It's also horrifying that I can say that a little bit, like I'm not going to say I don't face guilt or scared feelings or anything, but once I've kind of made a decision that I no longer want to do something, I kind of just make myself, I do a good Irish exit, and that's how it's been. But I do think I would urge people to always remember that you have one life to live. There is one opportunity to do exactly what you want in life. And if you're accomplishing what you thought you wanted, and it is no longer giving you the feeling you wanted from it and you needed from it and why you chased it, then it's not the right thing for you. You have to, it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe this is years of therapy and, working out codependency issues, but it's your life. And if you're not happy, you're the only one that has the power to change it. No other situation is going to make it the right. No other variable in the situation is going to make it right for you. That's up to you.
Yeah. And judges will judge regardless of what you do. So you might as well please yourself.
Oh my goodness. If you're worried about people judging, don't. And that's so much easier said than done. We all worry about being judged, and we all worry about what other people are going to think. And that's never going to go away. My mom no one in my family does anything close to what I do. And my mom had to give a presentation the other day, and she was like, well, how do you get over being scared talking in front of people? And I was like, you don't. I still get scared talking in front of people. Now it's more of a muscle memory thing where I'm a little more accustomed to it, but you don't. It never, and that's fear of judgment never goes away. It's just learning skills to get yourself past it and saying, I can't change them. All I can do is do what I need to do. There's a really good Brene Brown thing, and I don't know that it's regularly accessible. My therapist played it for me, but it makes this comparison to being on a stage in a stadium. Does this ring true to anybody? Because I don't even know how to tell your audience to look it up, but it's basically, there are cheap seats, there are box seats, there are the seats for your biggest fans, and they all have different roles. And what is going to be, where should your attention be in those seats? Do you pay attention to the haters who bought the cheap seats all the way in the back who are booing you? Or do you look at the people that are your support system that are right there in the front? Or do you look at the box seats that are the executives, the CEOs that pay for the venue and paid advertising and all? I really urge people to listen to that, because whenever I really feel scared of judgment, I go back to that comparison, and it really does. It makes something really click inside of me.
Yeah, I love that, because it's saying the audience isn't going away. The cheap seats are still there. The haters are still there. It's just where you choose to spend your time, where you focus your attention. So I love that. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're onto a different question, but I would love to finish the thought that I had before my child melted down.
We're on like two other questions.
Remember it.
Her question now was what to do. How do you handle? Do you want to rephrase your question? But essentially,
we've been talking about, in that moment when you realize that actually what I'm doing right now is not making me happy, and how do we be brave enough to change and to do something different?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, from the original story that I was saying, is that I don't know. I just I've always just valued how I feel more than these other things, these titles or the money or whatever. I've just always been like that. And so bravery isn't really the thing. There's no other option. I can't live in a state of sadness if I can control it. Like I just
Yeah.
can't. So it's just not an option. So it's not brave. It's just like, I can't do it any other way. But I think that part of that is, you know, if you're not happy and then you try something else, and then maybe you're not happy with that thing you try, and then you try, whether that's like dating different people or a job or whatever it is, you know, all of the things you've done up until then, all the trials, all the things that you had to try before you realized it didn't make you happy, all of those things, just you sort of have to trust that at some point, if you keep searching, don't get discouraged, that someday there'll be something. And surprisingly enough, you won't have to, you know, bifurcate yourself in all these different ways. You will be integrated in all the things that you have done, all the failures or not failures or whatever, all culminate in this one thing. And so all those misses in the middle were important.
Yeah.
I just sent you I just sent you a link about that, is a blog about somebody talking about it. It's called the Vulnerability Theater, is the Brene Brown comparison. So that may help some things click for some people.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'll pop that in the show notes of this episode. That's super useful.
You may find something better. I was just trying to find you something quick so you could
Yeah.
do whatever you needed.
No, that's great. Now, before we work towards wrapping up, I want to just for a moment talk, or just can you share with us, what's the day in the life of Ashley and Keri look like? What is life for you guys? I feel like you've got lots of things on the juggle. What's a typical, well, let's go a week. What's a typical week for you guys in terms of business, podcasting, mummying?
Keri, do you want to start? I can tell you there's no consistency.
There's not
at all.
Yeah. I mean, we're working for it with our kids being in school more regularly. You know, we have COVID kids. Our kids are young. It's been a confusing time for everybody, but, you know, we're working towards having our kids actually in a school full time so that we can have a steady schedule. We'll see if that happens. But, you know, we usually record and write, an episode at least once a week. Sometimes we batch ahead. So there's that part of our time spent recording together. And then like 1 million text and phone calls on the toilet happens. That's a large part of our work week, just brainstorming and working on schedule stuff.
We also don't have anybody working for us except for an editor. So all of our admin work is done by us. All of our emailing is done by us. Our booking, everything is
our PR, everything.
Every single aspect other than editing. And even that sometimes Keri has to manage is done by us. And so it's really, I mean, I feel like my week basically consists of trying to get work done while my child's not around. And then when he's around, trying to fit in all the other things like grocery shopping or doctor's appointments or taking him to whatever kind of activity he has, making dinner, you know, and then by the time that all happens, I have no interest in a social life.
Ashley and I think a strength of ours is we are good delegators to each other. We know each other's strengths. We know each other's weaknesses. And so we really tried to delegate certain tasks. Of course, we can take over for each other, you know, but we really try to delegate the things that we like best and we're best at. And so, you know, one person's more the admin person and the other person's the more tech person and this, whatever. And so it helps split it up. I wish we were doing more work in the same place at the same time, because when we do that, when we manage to meet up in person, we get what would normally take us like 2 days, 3 days worth of work done in a very short period of time.
Maybe in the fall when our kids start going back to school, maybe we do like
have office hours.
Come over, yeah.
And
we have office hours like once or twice a week, and we can switch off or like.
You heard it here, people. We just discovered this plan and idea. Yeah, but we just get so much more done. It would be like the 3-day work week. It's that we could get so much more done if we were physically in the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just like we talked about the coins in the bucket, like doing all the family stuff, and then whatever's left over, you know, you try to either hang out socially and we can go grab a drink somewhere, or, you know, spend more time with the husband or whatever it is.
Like our outside families, extended families. It's really just like work. manage our children, and then scramble to get everything else in there.
And
like
we've been
launching
a second business on top of the podcast. And so then now we're like, whatever time we have left, now we have to prioritize it more. But before it was like, whatever time we have left, then we work on that second project or whatever it is. Plus, like Ashley and I teach yoga as well. Still, Ashley
I do a bunch of freelance work.
So we also have yet another job that's not a Momtourage job that we're each doing at least one, if not two, separately.
Yeah, amazing. That was really interesting because my next question was, what's the secret to working together in a partnership? Because often my salon owners are in partnerships, and I think you mentioned, Ashley, they can, it's a miracle sometimes when they work really well. So what's the one secret, do you think, to a good working partnership?
I always say that
boundaries and honesty.
Yes. But I was going to say, I always say that I think what made it work is because it was almost like a business arrangement at first. Right. So for instance, we were cast as best friends. So it's like, okay, in order to make this believable, let's say these are the rules to our new friendship. Right. And then when we started our own thing together, we had already set up those rules. Like it was a business contract. So by the time real feelings were involved, that ickiness had already been taken care of before we got more deeply embroiled. So one, yes, honesty and boundaries for sure. But two, if you can start it in kind of a businessy way before all the entanglements, sometimes you can't, sometimes you just can't, but it did help us be clear, very clear at first.
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. I think that's really important. Some kind of working relationship contract of some description. All right, what would you say is a quote or a mantra or something that both of you keeps you centered, grounded, moving forward, that you can share with other business owners?
Mine is ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. And that's Samuel Beckett, the writer, Samuel Beckett, the Irish writer. I just love it. I've since bastardized it. Sorry, Samuel. To just like, it's like a win light. It's not a full win. It's a win light, so that I reframe it for myself that it's not a failure at all. Actually, it's just like win light.
It's a step
less
towards
calories and the full win. Yeah.
It's a step towards the future win. You're on your way towards it. I like that. So I always, that reminds me to just keep trying and not to, get discouraged if it's not winging and if it's not a win,
I think mine is, I don't have an exact quote, but my husband has always said to me, it not to me specifically, just about a lot of different people. I've let me back up. My parents always taught me to just always go after what you want. And they always did. So I have that, and kind of building on that concept. My husband has always said, can you imagine where XYZ would be if they had just kept at it for 5 years? And he uses Bill Simmons a lot as an example of that. For those of you who don't know who Bill Simmons is, because I didn't. I guess he used to be, I may botch this bio, so no one hold it against me. But he's American, and I think he used to be like on ESPN or some kind of like sports journalist of some kind. And he basically went off and did his own podcast. Oh no, it started with a blog. He did his own blog. He got fired or some kind of contract issue, and he just started a blog. And now he's like a Joe Rogan in that. Please lower your voice. In that, not at all in similar views, but in that he's been at podcasting for so long, he's at the top of the game. And it's just, if you just keep at it for 5 years, just imagine where you'd be. And I think about all the harebrained ideas I've had of trying to make my career go off, and I'm very much a self-starter. I've started a lot of things for myself to get to a certain place. Had I kept those going for 5 years, imagine where it would be. And now I'm at a point where I would say, with hosting, it finally is the thing I can say, wow, 5 years ago, I started this thing, and look at where it's taken me, and look at the success that I've seen from it, which is Momtourage, which now is Most Talkative as well. And I think that that's pretty incredible.
And then I would just say our together mantra is that's showbiz, baby.
Oh yeah,
which just reminds us that this is the business we're in. That's showbiz, baby.
Yep.
So that's the Momtourage motto.
It works for everything.
Yeah.
I love it.
Drop your Starbucks that you just paid $8 for on the floor.
Showbiz,
baby.
All right. What is I normally ask here what's a book or a podcast that we read, but why don't you tell us, where can we find your podcast? Where can we stalk you, and all of the things?
Oh, you can find everything at momtouragepodcast.com. All of our social handles are at Momtourage Podcast. You can find out more information if you're looking to start a podcast, or you have a podcast and you want somebody to consult, help
revamp something you already have,
or just start one, whatever phase you're in your podcast journey. We do that as well. That's called Most Talkative. You can find that at momtouragepodcast.com as well. Personally, my information is at Ash Heron Smith on all socials.
And I'm at Keri Sotero on all socials.
Amazing. It's been so great hanging out with you this morning. I really appreciate it. We've all had our children come and visit us at some point.
Oh my God.
Mine was the worst.
That was very on topic, I thought.
She knocked my whole podcast chamber down and then got stuck in it. I was like, oh God.
Mine is literally playing with reusable wrinkle smoothers right now. So that's where we're at.
I love it. It's been great hanging out. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us.